Welcome to my presentation on creative editing. I was invited to do a presentation on how I came up with my creative editing on some of last year's photos. I will try my best to do a breakdown of how I put my images together. How I got started is where I will begin. Long story short, I grew up with lots of creative influences in the family. My dad was very musical, played guitar by ear. My mom was always involved in crafts and a very talented photographer as well. Growing up, everything from magazines and record albums had cool art and photography everywhere you looked. I also grew up in the days of MTV and with more exposure to visual arts. It all left a very huge impression on me. Once I got to high school, I was given my mom's film camera from her days of being a photographer for Olin Mills, and then I was hooked. While I was in high school, I took every elective possible that was a fun class rather than take anything serious. Just to name off a few of the classes were fashion merchandising, sewing, dance, and photography, plus more creative stuff if you can see a theme coming on. Here is just a refresher of some of the standout creative images and winners from last year's creative competition. Starting with Chasing Butterflies was a self-portrait that started off in the bathroom with just a little makeup, hat, and a wig. The rest was lots of playing around and layers in the programs I will talk about shortly. The image Fortune Teller came from a Halloween photo shoot with model named Jessica Lynn. The end result took several attempts to get this to the final stage. The last image, Time Flies, was a big clock outside a hospital in town. So, before more time flies away, let's move on to the table of contents and go through how the sometimes magic happens. Now to the table of contents, or hopefully the order of chaos. To the methods of my madness, this is what I will attempt to cover during creative editing presentation. 1. Introduction. 2. My editing process. 3. Overlays. 4. Layers or combining photos. 5. How it's put together. And 6. Results and examples of some of the works in progress. Introduction to photography and editing. This has been a creative journey. I'm pretty much a DIY kind of editor. It's all about hitting and save and playing with buttons and tweaking things until I'm grinning at the outcome. So much of my work has come from trial and error, as well as happy accidents. I try to capture moments and things that catch my eye, or even taking something ordinary and finding a way to show it in a unique way. I don't know where I'm going from here, but I promise it won't be boring. David Bowie. No, adventures first. Explanations take such a dreadful long time. Lewis Carroll. I guess when you turn off the main road, you have to be prepared to see some funny houses. Stephen King. I have so many favorite artists and influences growing up, even being lucky enough to grow up when the art on the record jacket was a big thing. It helped me to develop my creative eye. One of my favorite photographers is Anton Corbijn. Bonus points if anyone is familiar with his work. Okay, moving on to the program and tools. Programs and tools. I figured I would take the time to go over some of the more mobile ones I use. Since we have covered programs in Camera Club dealing with more on desktop software. Often I use my iPhone and iPad to edit photos. I can then save and pick up where I leave off. I can even open up the saved work on my laptop at any time. I tried narrowing down some progress shots of attempting to edit a very show-off Egyptian goose for a kind of walkthrough. I won't give away all of my tricks, but will try to show some of the basics of how I came up with some of my recent creative editing. Creative Cloud from Adobe is one program I can use to remove the background. There are other programs and apps, but this is one I come back to most of the time. I will talk a lot about Adobe throughout this presentation because besides photography, I have a hand in using their video software as well. The screenshot photo in this presentation was taken from my phone. If you look at the bottom of the screen, I circled blue the tool Remove Background. We will start there. Next will be some examples of the screenshots while editing. The original photo. This is the original Egyptian goose I am naming Goosifer. He was happy to put on a show for me on a recent trip to Texas, so being the show-off he is, it's only fitting he becomes the center stage of this process. Removing the background process. After picking the original photo in Creative Cloud, I hit the Removing Background button. Next we wait, and then we get the dreaded, "This is taking longer than expected." Most of the time it's pretty quick. Then it will give some options to save to camera roll or the cloud for anyone familiar using the cloud. Or you can save it to a folder in the desktop on my laptop for future use. The Egyptian goose, now Goosifer, has broken free from the confines of his feathered dwelling, embracing a newfound liberation. Let's see what he does with it. Photoshop Express through Adobe is used for overlays and themes. Only downfall is that it's only available on the mobile app. So this step is used on my iPhone or my iPad when I'm doing boring things like being in waiting rooms or lines or away from my laptop. Here's where the fun begins, layers. Our superhero, Goosifer, says, "Hold my feathers, I'm about to bust out some moves." Let's see what he does next, since we have him removed from the original photo. Next, Photoshop elements will be used to combine photos, which is referred to as layers in Photoshop. It helps merge images together, and this can be done on iPhone or iPad. This screenshot is from the app on my phone. I put a blue X to remind everyone that I don't use the generative AI portion of the program. This is very digital and cut and paste style editing. It does have many bells and whistles in the AI department, but just sticking to the basics for now. Let's start with a fresh snapshot in Photoshop Express, shall we? Lay a new foundation and let's see where it takes us. This was my attempt at a street photography style image while at a coffee house in Texas on vacation. It has already been edited in Lightroom, and given the moody editing I have already been working to create lately. So this leads itself to an open seat for Goosifer. Let's move Goosifer using the measurement tool, then slide that bird smoothly into the artwork like a pro. One more thing important to mention, this app only lets you do 5 layers of photos at a time. So if all 5 layers are used, I will stop, save that image, and then start all over with a photo as that same photo as the base photo to add more layers to. Lots of saving and lots of layers went into last year's photos. It was a bit of a learning curve. So hopefully you're able to see how the blend tool is used when combining photos. The first was the empty seat photo. The next layer was the image of Goosifer removed from his original photo. Then I had to pinch, squeeze, and slide him into the empty chair and decide how bright he should be. Okay, hopefully everyone is still with me. This is where options like overlays throw everything over the top for the creative edge. Follow me for overlays! So many options to choose from. I get lost here. Our goose wanted to be seen under some disco lights and or bubbles to illustrate the options. This is where the save, multiple versions before changes comes into play. I won't walk you through every option, way too many, but I will mix other programs or photos to make my own overlays, but that's way too much to get into. Here is the screenshot from my phone as I added the disco overlay to the photo, and it has many options in blend and adjusting available. Not to mention, I save in between every action in case I need to go back. Okay, here we are to the before and original photo, and after, over the top disco duck duck goose. Okay, now to the examples and works in progress of some of the photos I have been playing with recently. No walkthrough, just kind of before and after photos and progression shots. Garden Fairy, a dollar store figurine going from garden to glitter fairy. Garden Gnome, from Dollar Tree transformed from day to night gnomeware. I found a guy just happy reading his book outside while I was on my way back from hiking with my camera. It was such a random moment I had to grab a photo from inside my car. This was to become a photo to experiment the break from reality concept. Thank you for taking a look at my photos and a peek into my madness. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me.